What's up, people? Welcome back to part two of week one. Um, Another reason why I have to sort of split many of these lectures up is because I'm using the cheap discounted Zoom. So the maximum amount of time we can spend it in one lecture is 60 minutes anyways. So I break these up so that way you can digest smaller chunks. Um, let's see. So I've already gone over all of the preliminary information you need for this class. Announcements, where to find things, lessons, the folders, week one, the syllabus, the welcome quiz, which you got to take, the MLA quiz, quiz one, and the study guide for that, which is right there. And then what I'm going to go over now is all information that can be found in the week one PowerPoint notes, which is located here, the bottom of week one folder. And I'm going to go over everything you need to know to do well on the quiz two, the grammar MLA usage. And actually, if you haven't taken the quiz one yet, you can just wait and do it after this because it will also help you. And then I'll go over the Samantha Irby stuff. So let's start this PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so week one. This is everything you need to know to do well in this class, and especially on the work that I'm going to be having you complete. Here's our agenda. I'm going to discuss MLA formatting. I'm going to discuss writing titles specifically. These have caused a lot of problems for students throughout the years in their papers because in this class, you will be writing about short stories. You'll be writing referring to articles and essays, and also a novel and a film. And all of those are all the titles of those types of materials are punctuated differently, okay, and styled differently. So you need to know the difference. We're going to talk about using quotation marks, parenthetical citations, integrating quotes, and the semester novel, and this week's work. All this stuff is essential for you, okay? So let's make sure that we pay attention, okay? So in terms of one of the major aspects of this course is setting up MLA formatting. In college, all your papers will be submitted digitally mostly. They'll be typed, and formatting is a huge requirement. And so what we teach you in 1101 and 1102 is MLA formatting, which stands for Modern Language Association. Now you'll take some, maybe if you take psychology, they're going to teach you AP formatting, which is totally different than MLA. I mean, not totally, but it is. You might, if you decide to go to become a journalist, you'll learn AP formatting. There are many different types of specific ways that people want your essays written. And so you need to be used to adopting and following the structures of specific formats. And so in this course, we do MLA. Semester one, you should have mastered MLA, but also semester two, we reinforce it, and you will lose points on your work if your papers and your classwork are not formatted correctly. So setting up proper MLA formatting. This is sort of an example of how your paper should look right off the bat, whether you are typing up classwork or you are doing an outline or you are writing your a paper. It should look like this. So it begins with last name and page number in the top right-hand side. This needs to be in the header section of your paper. It's not in the heading. If you notice, this is gray while this is black. That's because it's in the header section of your paper. And when you insert the page numbers, you don't type the page number. you insert it, because if you type, whatever you type here is going to repeat on every page. So if you type the 1, it's going to, every page is going to say Thomas 1, Thomas 1, Thomas 1. But if you insert the page number, then it changes it for you with every page. It's an algorithm, and I can demonstrate that for you in a moment. The heading is begins with your first and last name, my name, the class, and the due date, whatever the due date is. We have the day of the week first, then the month, and then the year. Title should be centered. Your paragraphs will be indented, and everything needs to be double spaced. It needs to go ahead and be set up double spaced. There should be no extra spaces between paragraphs, and I'm going to show you what that looks like in a moment. And now this is a buyer's best practice. Technically speaking, your essay doesn't have to be aligned to justify. It can be just aligned left, which is the standard. I think aligned to justify is much better. It is. It makes the paper look much more professional. And so I can show you how to do that in a moment also. Okay. A common spacing error, which I'm going to demonstrate for you, is that many students turn in papers with incorrect spacing between the sections of their papers. So for example, someone might turn a paper like this, and you see how there's all this additional space here as compared to this one right here. Okay, this has, if you notice, this space here is larger than the space here. And in between these paragraphs right here, this space is larger than the space right here. So this is incorrect, while this is correct. Okay, so if you notice this right here, see this where I've highlighted, this space between these is much too thick. You will lose points on your papers if you have these additional spaces between your parts of your papers, okay? And look, this is how you fix this, okay? This is how you fix it. So you have your paper, and then what you do is you highlight the whole thing, highlight the whole essay, and then select this little paragraph formatting icon right here. And then this will pop up. And under the spacing heading, if the before and after are blank, that means that there are inconsistencies throughout the paper. So you need to type in a 0 in the before box, type in a 0 in the after box as well. Make sure this says double, then hit OK. All right, hit OK, and then that will clear up that error and make your lines all closed within. This error will cost you points on every assignment it occurs. Okay, so again, this is bad. Errors. This is the way it should look. Okay, so make sure that you do that. Okay. Next, titles and quotation marks. This is on quiz number 2. Titles of short stories, which is what essay 1 is going to be all about. Essay 1, which I'll discuss next week, is about short stories. So titles of short stories, poems, articles. You will be citing a lot of articles in this class, so this is relevant. Short stories, articles, songs, or episodes of TV shows, which I don't think you'll talk about too much in class in your essays, but who knows? Either way, though, all of these go inside of quotation marks. Stories, poems, articles, songs, or episodes of TV shows. So if you are talking about the story of an hour, this is a short story, quotation marks. Poem, The Road Not Taken, quotation marks. An article, Understanding Chopin, it's in quotation marks. Bertha, one of Grateful Dead's best songs, quotation marks. The one with all of the parties. It's a title of a Friends episode. Quotation marks. While titles of books, publishing websites, films, magazines, newspapers, albums, TV shows, these are written in italics, no quotation marks. Mindhunter is a great book that was actually made into a TV show. Star Wars is a film, but it was also made into a book. Rolling Stone, this is a magazine. The New York Times, that's a newspaper. American Beauty is the name of one of my favorite Grateful Dead albums, but it's also the name of a film. And then The Outsider, which is a book and a TV show. And all of these are in italics, okay? So these are the long form, a book, or a magazine, or the title of a TV show, or a movie. These are short, small pieces. The Story of an Hour is a short story, a poem, a song, an article. Okay, these are in quotation marks. Example. So here we have this article, Our Once Abundant Earth, published on the Atlantic magazine website. Okay. Oops. All right, so a publisher, article title, and author. These are all the three things we need in a citation. So the publisher here is the Atlantic. The Atlantic is our publisher. And they did you a favor. They went ahead and made their title in italics. The Atlantic. The article title is Our Once Abundant Earth. This, because it's a title, should be in quotation marks. Our Once Abundant Earth, quotation marks. And this is written by, you got it, John Reed. Okay, so publisher, article title, author. Publisher, The Atlantic, in italics. Article title is in quotation marks. And then we have our author. Okay, so you're using quotation marks. How do we punctuate? Commas go inside of quotation marks. Periods go inside of quotation marks. All punctuation, for the most part, goes inside of quotation marks. So here's an error. In The Story of an Hour, the protagonist dies of a heart attack. This is an error because this comma should not be on the outside of this quotation mark. It should be on the inside. This is an error on one of your papers, okay? Is this quotation mark being on the inside of the comma? Okay. I can't believe that she died from a heart condition. This is an error because the period needs to be inside of the quotation marks. It needs to be quotation mark, heart condition, period, quotation mark. Ta-da! This is the correct version. Quotes within a quote. Whew. So you have a quote, and then you have a quote within that quote. These use singular quotations. The quote within the quote uses singular marks, which are really just apostrophes. Oh no, I got misspelled that, or typo. I'll fix that. I want to fix it right now. There we go. How embarrassing. Okay, so Hillary Armstrong discusses how, quote, when a person is, singular quotation mark, seeing red, they are actually experiencing nerve damage caused by an increase of blood flow to the brain, period, quotation mark. For the record, I made that up. Don't go around telling people that when you're seeing red, it's actually nerve damage, okay? I completely made that up, but I was doing it just to show you a quote within a quote. I'm quoting Hillary Armstrong, who uses the phrase seeing red to talk about it. So we have the outer quote, which is the double quotation, and then we have singular quotation marks. And then we have the double in the end. Okay, so example punctuating quotes within quotes. We have this article from Psychology Today. 3/4 of teens, quote, feel happy away from their phones, by Deanna E. Graber. So the publisher is Psychology Today. How it should be written? In italics. Very good. The title of the article is 3/4 of teens feel happy away from their phones, but there's a quote within this title. So we have quotation mark, 3/4 of teens, and then we have singular quotation, feel happy, single quotation, away from their phones, double quotation marks. Okay, so make sure that you understand this. A quote within a quote has singular quotation marks. Okay, now speaking of quotes, we got to have in-text citations when you have a quote. Okay, so an in-text citation is a mentioning of the author's name of whoever said the quote that you're speaking of. And if there is a page number, a page number. So here we have two examples. You always have to, in your sentence, mention the author's name, whether that's in the sentence itself, like this. Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry was marked by a, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. Quote, I'm sorry, quotation mark, page numbers in parentheses, and then period. Now, if you don't want to mention the author's name in the sentence, then you can just write the sentence. Romantic poetry is characterized by the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, and then put in the parenthetical, parentheses, parenthetical citation, the author's last name, who said that, and the page number of, if it has a page number. Here, Wordsworth, you can also just not quote them directly, but summarize what they say and still give them credit. Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process. Okay. Correct versus incorrect citations. So, listen. Every sentence that contains a quote must include the author's name. That is emphasized here. Okay. Wordsworth, Wordsworth, Wordsworth. But not both. I was like, wait, what? So every sentence that contains a quote must include the author's name, either in the sentence or in the citations, but not both. Okay, so I just want to make sure I emphasize this. Do not both mention the author's name and have their name in the parenthetical citations. That is called redundant. Redundant citations will be marked as errors. So, for example, whoops. This is the correct citation. A successful adaptation in film is, quote, keeping to the heart of the original story, emphasizing the best features of the literary work, and not changing anything fundamental to the original story. Quotation mark, Baldwin, 15. Okay. Author's name is not mentioned in the sentence. Therefore, it is placed in the parenthetical citation with the page number. See this? Now look, y'all, if you are quoting an essay published online, you won't have page numbers, okay? I doubt many of you are reading film criticism books, but in the case you are, you use a page number. Every sentence that contains a quote must include the author's name, either in the sentence or in the citations, but not both. Redundant citations will be marked as errors. Okay, so again, here is another example. According to film critic Annie Baldwin, a successful adaptation in film is keeping to the heart of the original story, emphasizing the best features of the literary work and not changing anything fundamental to the original story. Quotation mark 15. This is correct because author's name is mentioned in the sentence, Annie Baldwin. Therefore, it does not appear in the parenthetical citation. See? It's here, so it's not here. Okay. Here's an incorrect example. According to the film critic Annie Baldwin, a successful adaptation in film is blah, 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 blah. I've read it twice already. There's a quotation mark. Baldwin, 15 periods. Okay, that is incorrect. Author's name is mentioned in the sentence and the parenthetical citation. Therefore, this is incorrect because the name should only appear once. So it's here and it's here. That is incorrect. People do that all the time and they lose points off of their essays. If you do that, you're going to lose points. Okay. Also, this week, you're going to be doing some writing. Okay. You're going to start this week. So in this week's work, if you use a quote and you cite the person twice in the same sentence, it's an error. Next, we have something called literary present tense. When discussing a story, a film, an article, or any other piece of literature, like this week, you will be doing that. You'll be reading a person's work and talking about it. Always write in present tense, unless when talking about something that happened in the past within the story. Okay, so for example, when Janine sees the guard, she hopes to get his attention. The story takes place in like 1920. Okay, so even though it was in the past, even if Janine was a real person, she'd be dead by now. When you read the story, it's happening in that moment in 1920. So Janine sees the guard and she hopes to get his attention. It's incorrect to have written when Janine saw the guard, she tried to get his attention. That's incorrect because when I turn to the story right then and there, it's happening in the moment. It's present. So then you think about, okay, let's see here. When I'm writing about what's happening in the story, I do present tense. But if I'm talking about the past that's within the story, then it's past tense. Whew. So here's an example. Janine thinks, present, about how her daughter's behavior has been impacted by the way she herself was raised by a mother who thought words of affirmation were meant to affirm how inadequate she was at simple activities, such as playing veterinarian to her stuffed animals. Okay, so in the story, we have Janine currently thinking about her daughter, the way her daughter's behaving. In the present, Janine is thinking, she thinks about her daughter's behavior right now. And she realizes that her daughter's behavior now is because of the past. So now that we're entering the past, we can then enter into past tense because we're referring to things that happened to Janine prior to this moment right here. Okay. So when you are writing your analysis on this week's reading or next week's or the first short story, you got to make sure that you're writing in the correct tense. Are you writing about the present state of the character in the story, or are you referring to a past moment in the story? Okay, that's important. In chapter 2, Janine speaks to her husband about her feelings toward their daughter, but he ignores her, which leads to their daughter's arrest in chapter 8. Okay. So in the book, I can go back to chapter 2. And when I'm in chapter 2, I am reading about Janine and how she speaks to her husband. It's happening in chapter 2. And then I fast forward to chapter 8, and her daughter is being arrested. Both chapter 2 is in the present and chapter 8 is in the present. Okay. So I wouldn't use past tense for chapter 2 because, again, but with this one, we don't actually, this is referring to a flashback that she's having about how her mother raised her. And in the book, it's in the past. It's not happening in this moment. Okay. So when I go to the book and I read the passage about her childhood, it's all in the past. So therefore, when I'm writing about it in the past. So I use past tense. When I'm talking about different things happening in their respected presents, even if it's from different chapters, it's always in the present tense. Good luck with that one. All right, so putting it all together. Here we go. This is what you're going to be doing. Samantha Irby. Whoa, no, thank you. It's one of her books. She has many books. Many books. She is what you call an essayist. She writes first-person essays that are kind of like commentaries about life. She writes about being all about her identity. She writes about being a Black woman. She writes about being queer. She writes some about being overweight. She writes some about having bad skin. She writes about hygiene. She writes about culture. She just writes about being married, everything. And so her essays are all very different. Okay. This week you're going to be picking an essay from one of her books and reading and thinking about it. Okay. So here's an example of if you were to be writing about her, this is how you would write. Okay. In the essay, Love and Marriage. So this is a chapter from her book, Love and Marriage. It's in quotation marks because it's an essay. In the essay, Love and Marriage, from her book, whoa, no thank you, because books are in italics, Samantha Irby tries to dispel any overly glamorized notions of marriage when she very bluntly writes, quotation mark, quote, everything is boring. You're boring. There's a 95% chance your wife is pretty boring. And going to a wonderful country inn is probably, definitely, totally fucking boring. Quotation mark, page number, period. Okay, this is an example of something that has everything I just discussed. It's double spaced, it's indented paragraphs. We have a title of an essay. That essay is in quotation marks. We have a title of a book. It's in italics. We have a speaker who we are quoting. In that quote, we have quotation marks. So therefore, they go from being double quotations to singular quotations. And then we have a page number because this is an actual book. Then we have period on the outside. That's everything I discussed so far. An example. And so this week, when you are writing about, I'm going to show you the assignment in a little bit, but when you're writing about her work, if you're mentioning the title of her book, it needs to be in italics. If you're mentioning the title of the essay that you read, it needs to be in quotation marks. When you are pulling a quote out from her, it needs to have quotation marks. And if there's a quote within her quote, those need to be singular. And you need to have a page number. Okay. I'm grading you for all these things. Because this is exactly what you'll be kind of doing in your essays. All right, which brings us to integrating quotes. This excerpt, this example, has a quote in it, and I'm about to go over integrating quotes. Your work this week will deal with using quotes. And this whole class is based on using quotes and sources in your paper, okay? All right, so first off, understand this. Anytime you use a quote, it must be integrated into a sentence that you have written. Drop quotes are quotes used as complete sentences. and these are incorrect. Drop quotes are very incorrect. It's as if you wrote your paper and then you just dropped in a few quotes to stand by themselves, okay? You always have to use a signal phrase to lead into a quote. A quote, again, cannot be a sentence all its own, all right? So this is what it looks like. There are many examples of self-analysis in Plato's philosophy, period. Quotation mark. The unexamined life is not worth living. Quotation mark. Plato, period. That is a drop quote. We have a complete sentence, and then we have a period, and then we have a quote that's trying to be its own sentence. That is incorrect. Same thing here. Plato thinks people should analyze their own lives. Quote, the unexamined life is not worth living. Quote, period. It's incorrect. We have a quotation that is all on its own. Here's an example from a student paper that I got just last semester. First two lines of this essay, of this paragraph. Quotation mark. Feminist criticism focuses on the ways in which literature or cultural productions reinforces or undermines the economic, political, social, and psychological oppression of women. Feminist theory was created in response to patriarchy. Quotation mark. Nia Griffin, period. The paradigm of gender equality in women's experiences provides a critical viewpoint on social, cultural, and political concerns from a feminist lens. Okay, we have two sentences. One is a quote all by itself, and it's not even cited correctly. Okay, if a quote can be deleted and there's no evidence of it, then it is probably a drop quote. So here is our excerpt from our student paper. Okay, oops. And then here is that piece missing. The paradigm of gender equality in women's experiences provides a critical viewpoint on social, cultural, and political concerns. That's not an incomplete sentence. That's a complete sentence, which means that the previous quote, since it was not integrated, it just disappears as if it was never there. That means it was not correctly placed into a sentence that a student wrote. It's a drop quote. It is incorrect. This girl lost, this writer lost many points because they had just this quote sitting here and it is not integrated. You can't begin the sentence with a quote and then end it with a period. You got to integrate the quote. There are two ways to integrate quotes. One is the use of a signal phrase and a verb. So, for example, in the article, the ironies lost in translation. Film critic George Flicker, writing for the Hollywood Inquirer, argues, comma, quotation mark, the problem with Romeo and Juliet is that it ignores the fact that Shakespeare's play satirizes and makes a fool of the hyperbolic stage of adolescence. Okay, so in this sentence, we have the title of an essay, of an article, so it's in quotation marks. And then we have a speaker, and then we have where it was published, the Hollywood Inquirer. And then we have a verb, okay? Argues. All right, so we have this verb here, argues, comma, capital letter. Or you can integrate phrases and parts of a quote into your sentence. So we could also do this. What makes Romeo and Juliet so cringy is how it, quote, ignores, quote, the satire of the original production that was aimed at highlighting the, quote, hyperbolic stage of adolescence, and instead tries to convince the audience that we should actually feel pity towards these kids who commit suicide. Flicker. Okay, so look, the difference between these is that this one emphasizes the authors, so therefore it's supposed to rely a lot on what we call ethos, that your reader should really trust what you're about to say because it has this person that you're quoting. Okay, it's much more of an obvious quote. George Flicker argues, and we have the quote. This one is supposed to put more emphasis on on your ideas, and add ethos in that what you're saying is supported by other people as well. But when it's read aloud, one might not know that you're quoting anyone. Okay. This first one, it's obvious that you're quoting because you say George Flicker argues. This one, you don't say the author's last name, and you write it in a way where it sounds like you're just using your own words. What makes Romeo and Juliet so cringy is how it ignores the satire of the original production that was aimed at highlighting the hyperbolic stage of adolescence and instead tries to convince the audience that we should actually feel pity toward these kids who commit suicide. You'd have no idea. Someone just listening wouldn't have any idea that you're actually quoting anybody because the quotes are integrated so well. Verbs that can be used to introduce quotations before they appear in your paper. You say the author comments, the author describes, the author explains, illustrates, points out, all of these. Okay, I'm not going to read all of these. All right. These are all verbs that you can use. So like instead of George Flicker argues, you can say George Flicker comments, explains, observes, reports, relates, analyzes. George Flicker concludes. George Flicker disagrees or defends or contends. Okay, those are all verbs that you can pick. You look at the notes and go back to it if you want to. Punctuating, signal phrases, and quotes. Punctuation is important. You will lose points if your quotes are not punctuated correctly. When introducing a quote after a verb, there needs to be a comma after said verb, and then a capital letter for the first word in the quote. The two things I want to explain to you are going to be like really annoying and stupid, but standard English, and so you will lose points if you don't do these. So in this case right here, we have, look, we have argues, we have a verb. We have a verb. Therefore, we have a comma, quotation mark, and a capital letter. The problem with, the problem, capital letter, capital T. But when introducing a quote with a non-verb, no verb, then there should not be a comma after the non-verb. And the first letter of the word in the quote should not be capitalized unless it's a proper noun. So in this example here, we have in the article, the irony is lost in translation. Film critic George Flicker, writing for the Hollywood Inquirer, discusses is a verb, but then we have how. This how has taken the place of the comma. So this was argues, comma, quote, the problem. This is discusses how the problem with Romeo and Juliet is that it ignores the fact that Shakespeare's play satirizes and makes a fool of the hyperbolic stage of adolescence. Okay, so now we have this how, and we have no comma. So therefore, the word is not supposed to be capitalized. All right, it's lowercase. Do you see that? Discusses how the problem. The problem. This is capital because we have a comma and a verb. This is lowercase because we don't have a comma and the verb is separated between the quote and itself with this word how. Okay. All right. So now sometimes you want to modify a verb. I'm sorry, modify a quote and use it in a different way. So we can use ellipses, these are called ellipses, to indicate a removal of words between parts of a quote. So in this case, you'd say, in the article, the irony is lost in translation. Film critic George Flicker, writing for the Hollywood Inquirer, discusses how the problem with Romeo and Juliet is that it ignores, ellipses, a hyperbolic stage of adolescence. Okay, I shortened the quote. Or I could use brackets when needing to change a word from the quote in order to make it fit grammatically in the sequence of the sentence or to clarify a pronoun. So here, I would, if this word, let's see here, in the article, the irony is lost, blah, blah, blah. George Flicker discusses how the film attempts to ignore the hyperbolic stage of adolescence. eliminates the theme that is at the center of the play. Oh, wait, hold on. No. I gotta fix something here. Which, I need a word here. Okay. Which. All right. Let's go back to it now. So here the word is ignores. If this said ignores, it would say discusses how the film's attempt to ignores the hyperbolic stage of adolescence, which eliminates the theme that is at the center. No, we can do ignores. Okay. Discusses how the film's attempt to ignore the hyperbolic stage of adolescence. Oh no, it was written correctly. Which no. I need a comma here. Okay, but not the which. All right, look, I'm not down with things that are incorrect. So we're just what we need though was discusses how the film's attempt to ignore the hyperbolic stage of adolescence eliminates the theme. Oh no, it's just correct the whole time. I'm stupid. It's the end of the day, people. All right. So I'm just overthinking things. All right, here we go. So ellipses deletes parts of a sentence, deletes parts of a quote to make it shorter. Brackets change a word. So like this one, from ignores to ignore. Okay. If you use a word in a way that does not grammatically fit, it's not conjugated correctly, and you don't change it, then you will lose points because you got to use the brackets. Okay. If you're writing in present tense, but your quote's all in past tense, you need to change it to present tense. Okay. We need to have consistency. All right. So then how to break down a larger chunk to integrate into a paragraph. What if you have like a huge quote? Well, don't use the entire quote. We're not using huge chunks. Some people try to like, they try to fill their essay full of large quotes. That's a problem. No, break it down to nothing longer than a line. Quote phrases rather than complete sentences. Okay. So look, imagine I have this large quote. It's large, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line quote from this woman, Simone de Beauvoir. Okay. And I want to use parts of this in my analysis of The Story of an Hour. But I can't put this whole quote in my paper. It's way too long. All right. So what I do is that I read the quote and I find little things from it that I want to say, that I want to use. All right. These, and so I highlight the words out, like masochist. She enters into a state of humiliation, object of someone else, allows herself to be objectified. Okay. And then I work those things into my quote, into my analysis. So this is my analysis, just using chunks of quotes from this Simone source. This is Simone's quotes. And then this is my paragraph. I say here, Chopin's Miss Mallard represents the, quote, masochistic woman who automatically goes into a self-repressive state to fulfill her role as the woman-turned-object wife. Parentheses, de Beauvoir. The French feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir believes that women have forever been giving up their identities, much in a self-loathing way, in order to conform to the societal requirements of marriage. In The Story of an Hour, the heroine, Miss Mallard, is a lady who is, quote, young with a fair, calm face, but her youthfulness cannot save her from the effects of repression that brought lines to her face. Chopin 2. The repression that she experiences is from having to, quote, enter into a state of humiliation. Okay, so I changed this word enter. What was it originally? Enters with an S. So changed it to fit grammatically because it would not be correct if I said enters into a state of humiliation. Look, this word was in quotation marks in the original text, and here it just has the singular ones. At becoming a, quote, object of someone else, which in this case is Brentley. a man that seems nice enough and who, quote, she had loved, sometimes. And then I add this but to indicate the contrast. Often she had not. By bracket, allowing herself to be objectified, allowing instead of allows, blah, 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 being alienating herself. Okay. So I did not quote this entire 8-line chunk. I took the pieces that I wanted and I integrated them. I didn't drop them in, I integrated them into my analysis. I modified some words so it fits stylistically. I had to take out, when I quoted my original story of an hour, I had to cut some. So you have these ellipses. You do not use ellipses at the beginning of a quote or the end of a quote, only in the middle. It doesn't matter if you cut in the beginning or at the end, it's only in the middle. All right, this is what you're aiming for. All right, so look, I'm gonna get to the novels in a moment. All this matters in that you are this week going to be completing this Samantha Irby assignment. Okay. You are going to open up this book. Wow, no, thank you. All right, this is a PDF book. Oh, that's a different book. Let's see. You're going to open up Samantha Irby's book, and in it, you are going to, here it is. There's a bunch of essays. These are all different essays. You do not have to read them in order, okay? These are just a collection of essays, all right? You click on one, lesbian bed death. Okay, that sounds interesting. All right, so you could read this if you want to. If you read it, you don't like it, or you don't know how you're going to write about it, which that one is actually pretty funny. Body negativity instead of body positivity. All right, this is about her body. Okay, you just pick one to read. They're all like 20 pages or 15 pages, okay? Pick one to read. It can be any of them, any of them. For this assignment, you'll pick one of the essays from Samantha Irby's book, Whoa, No Thank You, which is located right here. You don't have to purchase it. You just download it. These essays are not related to each other, so you can look through the table of contents and just pick an essay that sounds interesting. When you finish reading the essay, complete the following. Create a properly formatted MLA Word document or Google Doc. Make sure it has a title. You will write 2 paragraphs. A, the first paragraph will be explaining in your own words what the essay was about. You will need to include the name of the book, the name of the essay, and 2 quotes that speak to the essence of the essay. The quotes need to be integrated correctly. Don't just present the quotes, talk about them. B, the second paragraph will be about a quote from the book that you want to comment on. You can pick something that she says that you agree with, disagree with, or that you find interesting because it reveals a perspective you didn't previously have, okay? I'll be grading you on all the following. Proper MLA formatting, properly writing and punctuating titles of books, properly writing and punctuating titles of articles or essays, integrating quotes correctly, using parenthetical citations, middle school level grammar, okay? So the errors, listen, this assignment is worth 1 point of all your stuff. So I'm gonna take 5 points off for every error, okay? 5 points off. So if you bomb this assignment, doesn't really matter, okay? But you want to do well, because if you do well, that means that you're right, that you won't lose those points doing those same things on your first essay, which is important, okay? So you're reading one of the essays, you're summarizing it, and then talking about it, and you're gonna try to use some quotes. You have to use some quotes because I'm testing you on your ability to write. I don't care what you think. I don't care if you're like, hey, you know, I like the book because I'm a lesbian and it related to me. Or if you're like, hey, I like the book because of this reason, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Or I didn't like the essay. It was really crude. Oh my God. It was, you know, a lot of profanity, a lot of bad language. Fine. And then provide some examples of bad language and then provide like ways that she could have said it in a nicer way. Whatever. Okay. I don't care. I'm not grading you on your opinion. I'm grading you on your ability to write well. Okay. Are you communicating? Are you formatting? Are you punctuating? Are you doing stylistically everything you're supposed to be doing? Okay. So if you have any questions about that, you can let me know. But everything I went over in this week 1 PowerPoint, all of this is what you're going to show me that you can do in this assignment for her. Okay. This is similar to what you're going to be doing, but in the form of a paragraph. All right. Okay. So that's this week. All right. Now, something I need to talk to you about for this semester. This semester, you have 8 weeks. We have 8 weeks summer course. Okay. Essay 3. Oh man, I didn't do my animations. Oh well. Paper 3 will be about an analysis of a novel that has been adapted into a film or TV series. You'll spend the next 6 weeks reading and watching it. A book needs to be completed by the start of the 7th week. I will suggest a book in the 300 pages range, which would require around 50 pages a week, roughly 10 pages a day with 2 days a week of catch-up time or relaxation. Starting sooner than later is highly recommended. By next week, you will have to complete the independent novel sign-off form. You will tell me what book you are reading, the author, is it a film or TV series, and so forth. This should not be a book that you have read before. And it's summer. Try something new, just do something fun. I don't want you just to blow this off. Listen, the thing about college, you can cheat in everything about college, pretty much. You can not really try to commit, not really, just go through the motions and get nothing from it. I know for a fact that there's people in my college classes who had the same grade I did, but I got so much more from that class, and I actually learned the stuff and I wanted to master it. And I rated myself not based upon my grade compared to their grade, but what I really knew and what they didn't know. Okay. I did things authentically. They half-assed everything. They cheated. They whatever. And they didn't respect actually being a better person as a whole. Okay. If when I finish a class, if you burnt my transcript or you burnt my report card, the evidence of what I gained from that class is still within myself versus some of these other people who, cool, they got a good grade, but they didn't really commit. They didn't really try. They didn't really believe in what we're doing, and they just found ways to cheat their way through. Okay, so don't be one of those people. So here are some suggestions of books, because I don't think I listed it here. This week's work. Oh no, I did. Okay, I have some suggestions here. Okay. So suggestions on books that I think are good. Okay, the following titles are posted in the week 1 folder titled "Free PDF and Online Links of Short Novels." I'll show you those in a moment. These are all free. If you don't want to pay for anything in this class, you can use these. Apt Pupil by Stephen King. I have the book, and you can figure out how to watch the film. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. She's French. Into the Wild by John Krakauer. The Devil Wears Prada by Lauren Wisberger. Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption by Stephen King. The Body by Stephen King. Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Herrer. Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. These are all provided for you. I'll show you where those are if you want to read those. Apt Pupil is a psychological horror. It's not supernatural, psychological. Rebecca is psychological horror, suspense. Into the Wild is all nonfiction. It's adventure, nature. Devil Wears Prada is kind of comedic, about a girl working for a terrible boss. Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption is Stephen King, but it's not horrific. It's more like drama. The Body is about kid. This is the perfect summertime book because it's about 4 boys in the middle of summer hiking down at railroad track to go try to find this dead body. Little fires everywhere, a great little suburban family kind of drama. Sharp Objects is a murder mystery that's really dark, and it takes place during the summertime also. Rosemary's Baby is horror, but it's not scary. It's about a woman who's pregnant in her time being pregnant and then finding out some very terrible news. Okay, so those are all available, and I'll show you where you can see get those for free. These are some additional suggestions that I know are good books and good adaptations, okay? But I'm not sure how long they are. These are all like around 300 pages. So you could realistically just read 50 pages a week and finish those. These ones are just good in general. No Country for Old Men and All the Pretty Horses both by Cormac McCarthy. Big Little Lies by Lane, whatever how you pronounce her name. Jaws, that's a great summer book. The Exorcist, I love horror. A Time to Kill, that's long, but it's a great movie, and it's also a summertime book. It's a law book. It's great. The Client, same thing with The Client. John Grisham is so easy to read, and doesn't matter how long his books are; they go by really fast. Where the Crawdads Sing, good summertime book. Interview the Vampire by Anne Rice. It's long, but it's really, really good, and I know that they just created a new series of it, and I also really like the original film. So as long as it has a film, you know, the Handmaid's Tale, okay, that's totally fine. You can find these free books in our eClass page, eClass Blackboard. At the very bottom, I have free PDF and online links of short novels. Here, all right, PDFs of all these. And then these two are online links. You can read those on your, you won't download those. Those take you to a website to read it. Okay. All right. So you don't have to fill out the form early, but you can go ahead and start reading now. I would suggest reading this week, especially if you want to do the whole just 50 pages a week. You kind of need to start now. But in the week 2 folder, here we have the independent novel sign off. You can go ahead and do that. Click on that and complete that one as soon as you want to. All right. And that's it for week 1. Okay. After you go over this, after you listen to this lecture, you can pull up the PowerPoint notes, and then you can go through and review anything I discussed. And then when you get ready to take the quiz 2, all right, you can go through and make sure that see if you find the answers. All right. Quiz 2 is application. It's not true or false. It's not rules. It's applications. I'm giving you examples, and I'm asking you if this is correct or not. And you have to either figure out the error or say that, you know, essentially it's fine the way it is. Okay. And again, there's no retakes. It's one time through. There's no like take it, see ones you got wrong, and then just focus on those. I know that strategy. All right. No. One take. That's it. All right, y'all. If you have any questions, let me know. I hope this was helpful. And I think y'all will do great this week. Take it easy. Bye-bye.